Welcome. My name is Laszlo Sereni and I welcome you to our roundtable discussions about printing excellence. So first of all, thank you for joining us. So to start with this topic, I want to tell you some personal experience based on the history of the company and on my personal work here at the company. In former years, few years ago, my main knowledge was about placement equipment. And I am a big fan of Star Trek and Mr. Spock. And to tell it with the words of Mr. Spock, placement equipment process is more logical. And I was very amazed when I learned about printing, how many illogical factors the printing process has. I mean, if you watch this fishbone diagram of this printing process, there are many illogical factors, most of all the paste, and it's a hell of a work to manage the printing process. And all of you who are doing this in your daily job, you have my utmost respect. So the printing process needs to be managed overall. Statistics shows that 70% of the defects in SMT electronics productions arise from the printing process. So that's why it needs to be managed and managed overall. And one fact on the market is that ASM is the only company who provides all the major components for a good print. It provides it in-house. We are producing it in-house and we have the experts in-house. And many electronics manufacturing companies are looking nowadays for a technical partnership where the technical partner improves, automates the processes in the factory. And in this regard, ASM would be the natural partner when it comes to improving the printing process and getting printing excellence. Your benefits, of course, is also that we coordinate with each other and we have no hidden information from each other. So what are those major components for a good print? It's first of all, of course, machine and software. Then we have materials and tools. Then smart process control. And of course, the expertise. And today I'm joined here by four fantastic colleagues of me, each representing one of those major ingredients. Here with me is Jens Katschke, Solutions Marketing Manager, representing machines and software. Jérôme Rousseval, also Solutions Marketing Manager. He is responsible for the smart process control. Christoph Oeckel, Manager of our Center of Competence, who is here for our experts. And last but not least, via web conference, Laszlo Jarog, Sales Manager for Process Support Products.
Hello, Laszlo.
Hello, Laszlo. Welcome, gentlemen. So my first question would be, it's a general question, is stencil printing still the technology you should have in your factory?
Yes. I think the first time the discussion came up was about 14-15 years ago, where the first jetting system, paste jetting system, came on the market, and we got a lot of feedback from customer that stencil printing will die soon. Now we are 15 years later, and stencil printing is still the major technology, and I think it will be for the future, because it's absolutely unmatched in the speed and performance. I think other systems like jetting, they are interesting as an add-on or for NPI production, when you only have to print 3, 4, 5 boards and then you change it to do a design change. But for a real production, for a volume production, I think there is no alternative to stencil printing.
Yeah, I can only agree to this because I see the process through the eyes of the SPIs. And I think what you need is stencil printing to have reliability in your process.
You have many experience with customers. Did they change the process during the last years?
No, not really. I would not say that. So from my point of view, we are still bound. There is no alternative to the stencil print.
So let's start with the first ingredient, machines and software. Jens, can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, for the machines, I mean, if we just talk about the whole print process, and you mentioned this in the fishbone diagram, we have more than 100 influence factors. So you need to manage all of them. And if we look onto the machine, you can compare that with the Formula One. If you want to win the race, you need to have a powerful engine, but you also need to have all the equipment around, including driver, etc., to win the race. Yeah, and the machine, from the machine point of view, this is more or less the engine. This gives you the base. And here, with our product portfolio, we are just offering an excellent base from the entry level, where you just have prototypes and mid-speed requirements with our DEK platform. We are just also have our Neo Horizon platform, where we're offering a real big flexibility for all requirements, up to the new DEK TQ, where we just really have the absolute performance, but also flexibility. So that is the base, and depending on your racing requirements, I would say you can select which one is the best engine you can go for.
Fantastic. DEK TQ, you mentioned DEK TQ, and I mentioned in another issue of our webinars that this is my absolutely new favorite ASM equipment. So we are talking here about a new generation. So what's new at the DEK TQ?
Everything is new at the DEK TQ. So we really started from ground up. It's a complete new machine design. We really used all expertise we have in the ASM group. We just have a lot of new features in the printer. Something like off-belt printing, which optimize the print quality. We have a very high accuracy. If we talk about future requirements like 0201 metric, something like this, you need to have a high accuracy in the printer. So that is all matched here. But if we look into the requirements, important as well is the performance, the accuracy, the print quality, but also that the machine can run for a very long time without any operator intervention. Because today we want to minimize the downtime. So, and that was also one of the focus points on the DEK TQ, that we really can run up to 8 hours or full shift without any replenishment on the printer. So the new DEK TQ is really, I would say, the base for the future.
We are talking here also, like you mentioned, with the shift, 1 hour shift, so increasing efficiency. What other topics is there in the DEK TQ?
Yeah, from the very first beginning, we just really optimized it for basically 5 key factors. Yeah, I mentioned some of them. We have the accuracy, we have the print performance, the non-stop production, but also today important is that you have a very high integration into the smart factory. So also interfaces are important. That is a fact here with the new TQ. We have a lot of innovation inside. If you just, as an example, see how we are clamping a stencil, we are not having any point force anymore. We are just having a rubber part where we really can clamp the stencil over the whole length, which is giving us a perfect fix of the stencil independently of the profile of the stencil. That is with a lot of frame systems on the market, sometimes very difficult. That is also giving us more the possibility to flatten out the stencil if necessary. So there is a lot of invention into that one. I mentioned also the off-belt printing. Yeah, we are just basically turned around the principle how we clamp. So we are now moving the board from the belt up against the overtop clamps. So we have a perfect 0 point or reference print position. And we have no influence anymore from the transport, from the belts, etc. So these are all small elements you can see in the new printer, which is really enabling the top performance you need for the future print requirements.
And I saw also in other video of us that we incorporated the best of our placement equipment, like the digital transport.
Yes, we also just basically, as I mentioned, we really took the know-how together. So we used also components from the placement machines in terms of the frame system. We did a lot of simulations here. And of course, when we just use the know-how from the placement with all the linear drives, the mass which is moving around. You have different perspective how to design such a frame, and we put all of this together. So the base for the machine is a very solid, and you see it on the weight of the printer. Even if the TQ is smaller from the footprint, the weight is higher. So it's a very solid machine, which is giving us also the opportunity in future to be much more accurate.
Thank you. Next, let's switch to Laszlo in Hungary. So Laszlo, Jens mentioned the base, the machine for the printing process, and you represent a lot of materials and tools starting from the spatula to the stencil. So why are they so important?
Yeah, thank you, Laszlo. So a lot of people underestimate the process support products portfolio, but I don't want to hurt anybody, but I think I have the best and the most important and interesting portfolio here, because I would like to get back to Jens' Formula One example. Like many people work year by year, day by day, week by week, to prepare the car for that year, to take from the engine the most horsepower, to have the best acceleration and repeatability. But you know, when you put the car to the start line and on the race day, there are a lot of factors which is affecting the race. So such factors like the weather conditions. So in this kind of what kind of weather is going to be present? Is it going to be dry or is it going to be wet? Now the people and the teams need to choose the best parts and best tires for the race. So what tire we use, soft tire or hard tire if the condition is dry. If it's wet condition, shall we use a rain tire? And actually we are doing this with PSP, with process support products. We are fine-tuning and we are preparing the car for the race to finish with the fastest way and the most reliable way. So when we talk about tire in our electronic words, in our PSP words, we are talking about stencils. Like what kind of stencil? Shall we use nickel stencil? Shall we use stainless steel stencil? Shall we use coating? Shall we use slick tire that's a single level stencil? Or if we go with a wet tire, that's a multi-level stencil. So you see, Laszlo, how important is the process support products. And a lot of people don't know, but ASM is one of the largest stencil supplier in the world. We have all the different kind of material. We have a wide range of portfolio, from normal stencils to special stencils, for multi-level stencils, even to 3D stencil. We make stencil with laser cutting technology. We make stencil with electroforming technology. But I can take another example from the consumable world, like the helmet on the driver. You know, they use this plexi to keep the shield clear. So if this shield is contaminated or it's raining and the droplets is remaining on this shield, then the driver need to drive blinded. So basically with the coating or such a feature on the stencil like nano coating, then you can help to repel this rain and repel the flux. So that makes your driver vision clear. Or in the PCB support world, I can name the seat in the car. You know, we fix the driver to the car into the entire race, and we use the safe belt to pamper him through and keep it safety. So basically, this is what we are doing at PSP, and that's why I'm telling you that without the machine and without the PSP products, you cannot win the game.
Perfect. I like your ASM racing team example.
It's really an interesting point of view.
It's a very good example. And speaking of racing team speed and stencil, we promote our ability to quickly deliver our stencils to our customers. Can you explain us how we do that?
Yeah, sure, Laszlo. We have a smart stencil network through the world, and that's how we can deliver it quickly. We have 58 VectorGuard licensings and ASM franchises through the world, from Australia to Africa, North and South America, and in Europe. So logistic is demanding, but this is the smaller problem. The main important thing is we need to keep and we need to make our products in the same quality. And actually, this is what we can do very stable. We work based on procedures and processes, and this is let us enable to make the perfect and finest quality.
Now, I know that we check the design of the stencils like other suppliers. But can you tell us what we make differently than other suppliers in these terms?
Yes, Laszlo, this is a very interesting story here. So you asked from the right people, because when I started from 2000 at DEK and ASM, I was designing stencil that time. And I remember for those days, I was designing stencil and then double and triple check the stencil, but I had no such perfect tools like these days. So I did all the job manually, and it was a visual inspection. Later, with years, we had a kind of automation built into the CAD/CAM software, but this automation is focused for very simple checks like area ratio. But in these days, we are using a very interesting system. We are using expert systems called DFM Health Check, and which is also, it's not designing the stencil basically, but you can play a lot and you can put a lot of parameters, and basically you can virtual print prior you make the stencil, and you can test some kind of variable. So this is, if I would like to compare this to the Formula 1 race, basically this system is the simulation of the race. So when you are staying at the start line, our system can simulate different conditions, and you can see how do you need to act it. What kind of stencil you need to use, what kind of strategy shall we use, what kind of PCB support shall we put to the car. It's a very interesting system.
So can you also tell us what at the end the customer gets out of it?
Yeah, sure. This is a very simple system. It sounds a little bit futuristic, but basically our customer can benefit from this, and our CAD team is already benefiting from this. So basically, you need to have the Gerber file. Our CAD team or the customer CAD department is making the stencil Gerber ready, load it to the expert system, and also put some variables, some factors which is usually influencing the print process, putting these parameters, which is a small form you need to fill out. It's not more than 10 parameters, and then you can simulate your race. You can simulate your printing. So what kind of stencil you need to use, if you don't have these tools available in your factory, what is possible and what is not possible. And the good thing is, with every choice, the system is visualizing the results. So you see exactly on the PCB which area is the most problematic area, where you need to make a little bit more. And this is happening before you make the actual stencil or you print anything. So I think this is a perfect system.
Perfect. Thank you, Laszlo. Jerome, I believe that's a perfect handover to you. DFM Health Check, smart process control. But we also talk here about our SPI and our expert system. Can you explain us those components for a perfect print?
Yes, certainly. So as Laszlo was saying, the design for manufacturing health check, it provides you with an outlook how well your stencil is going to work with your planned process parameters. Because when you print, you have not only the stencil, the machine, but you have as well from the expertise, you use solder paste, you use squeegee, you use PCB support tooling. So they all play together a role to get a good quality. And design for manufacturing health check, it's part of a process expert solution. It's the fully automated optimization of the printing process. So design for manufacturing health check provides you with a good starting point, avoids having bad surprises at the line, because you can see in advance how well this is going to work. Maybe you need to order different tooling. Maybe you need to qualify a new solder paste type. But once you get access to the line, then you can actually run without any problems. That's only one part of the solution, because you first stabilize the process, But then afterwards, you need to optimize it. And to optimize it, then you need an SPI, which is going to measure the print quality. And with process experts, then it's going to optimize fully automatically the quality. And you get a better yield.
I think that's a point what also Laszlo mentioned. I think when you just really have all the simulation up front, I think you don't need to go on the line, occupy the line, do your testing, do your process optimization, and then you just see, oh, my stencil is not as it should be. So you need to order another stencil, or you need to order a different stencils up front. With DFM Health Check, I think you can see that just right before you do that, right?
Yes, and it's quite important today with the industry trend, because customers are having lower, smaller batch sizes, a lot more NPI processes, so they need to get it right the first time. Because as Jens was saying, whenever you book the line isn't running, isn't producing, and the customers, the users are not making money.
So DFM Health Check provides some input for the next steps for our SPI machines and our process expert. Now many customers ask, yes, ASM is not exactly an old established SPI manufacturer. Why didn't we use one SPI already existing on the market? Why are we better?
So I see two questions. The first one, we're not really new in the vision world. Within ASM, we have a large company, a lot of expertise, and the machine has been developed at ASM in Singapore because they are the team who have developed the wire bonders. So they're used to measuring very small physical dimensions, the wire bonding with a camera. So they could actually provide us with a good machine very quickly. The second part of your question is, would it have been simpler to integrate another SPI? Yes, but would customers have benefited from this? Not really, because the question is not how simple it is, but what could we offer in a much better way. So this is why we developed our machine as a high-end SPI.
So then talking about this, can you explain us what our SPI makes better and differently and better?
If you look at high-end SPIs today, you have two technologies to measure the solder paste in 3D, either with the laser or with the moiré phase shift. So we went for the moiré phase shift because it's more reliable, more stable to measure solder paste. You don't have any impact from the color of the board. But we improved on this. Most moiré SPIs, they use a grating, so they project stripes onto the board, but it's a fixed pattern that they project. We wanted to have flexibility. So we have this flexibility using a digital light projector, 8 million micromirrors, which we can move very easily. So it gives us the ability to acquire the 3D image much faster, but also to play around with the height resolution and the measurement range. So today, our machine is a high-end SPI. It has the best-in-class height resolution of 0.36 microns. That's the smallest height difference that the machine can actually see. But we have the widest measurement range in the industry. We can measure in 3D up to 1 millimeter.
Good. So, for example, these 8 million mirrors, what other benefits does the customer has out of these innovations?
This flexibility in the measurement range, so it means the machine has been designed to measure solder paste, but it can actually measure as well glue dots and fully glue dots because it can measure much higher. So you don't have the restrictions that the other high-end SPIs have, where when the deposits are too high, parts of the deposits are missing. They look like a volcano in 3D because the top of the deposit is outside of the range. So it's one benefit that we implemented in the machine. The second one is that we use 2D filtering before we perform 3D measurement. And the 2D filtering is there to really only focus the 3D measurement on what's really important on the solder paste. So it removes the impact of any topology of the PCB or the position of the paste. If you use a standard 3D SPI, if you have tracks close to the deposit via, or if the deposit is close to the edge of the board, it could create wrong measurements, and we don't have this with our machine.
Let's talk about the next level of the SPI, or something which is actually new on the market, the expert system. Can you explain us simply what ASM Process Expert means for the customer?
So if you use process lens as a standard SPI, then it's going to measure your process in a much better way, with a drastic reduction of the number of false fails and no false accept. It can actually detect all the printing defects because of its very good height measurement range. And then it's going to compare the measurement to the inspection criteria that the customer has set. So if you have defects, the machine will stop and tell the operators what to do. But actually, if you enable the process expert solution, so the full optimization, you have more functions from your machine to actually control your process. And if I go back to the example of the Formula One, it's like you have the best engine, you have the good tires, and then process expert, what it does, it's going to tell you when to do the pit stop and what to do next. It doesn't wait until you don't have enough gas in your tank and your machine is staying at the race, but it's not at the pit stop. It tells you in advance what to do.
And the process expert works in perfect combination with our DEK printers. So
yes,
no hidden information.
Yes, and it's actually quite interesting as well, because based on the knowledge we already have in machine manufacturing, in material for stencil support tooling, and in expertise as well for processes, we have improved the process expert product, and we use the measurements from the SPI as well to go back to the machines, the materials, and the experts to bring more knowledge within the company and to benefit the users.
One question customers always have, there is this older or previous tool with the DEK printers to have a closed loop with other SPI manufacturers. What's the difference?
On the DEK printer, of course, since many years, we have the Pro DEK interface, which is actually our option to communicate with external SPIs. But the printer can only work on the information he is getting from the SPI. So the important part is what we do in our software is that we keep the control on the printer, but we rely on the information we are getting from outside. So if we get good information, it can work fine. If we get bad information, it can run out of control. And that is the point which I think is a main difference to Process Expert, right?
Yeah, so for the Process Expert, as Jens was saying, it's something different than the standard closed loop with a Pro DEK. It's taking it to the next level. The first part is that Process Expert understands the printing process. It has a knowledge database, so it understands the interactions between all the parts when you print, the machine and the material, and is going to really focus its actions on the most critical areas in the product. That's what happens in the line, and then of course what you have as well is what we said before. You have the design for manufacturing health check, the virtual print, which allows you to see before how good the product is going to run. So it's not just doing something in the line, but it's giving you advices at the start as well.
And I think the point here is as well, I think that here in the Process Expert, we are really working on the original data. And that is a big difference, because in the Pro DEK interface to external SPIs, we're getting the information filtered by the limits, which are programmed on the SPI. So depending how good the limits are programmed, some customer do it like a very big range, yeah, other do it pretty well, and then you get different results. And here with the Process Expert, we're working on the base, on the real data, without having any influence of the setting of the limits of the process lens, right?
Jens makes a very good point. The way Process Expert works, it works fully independently from the inspection criteria on the SPI. Process Expert is using statistics, so it's actually building up control charts, and it's going to act on the process when it starts to drift. It doesn't wait until you are in an area where you could actually have printing defects.
So that's why also Process Expert runs under smart processes and not under machines, I guess.
Yeah, so the SPI Process Lens, if you combine it together with Process Expert solution, it works under smart processes, because it's going to optimize your printing process 24 hours a day and 7 days a week without the need for any external activities.
And it's actually an automation of the process and optimization. So it's just really keep the line running without having anybody in front of and doing optimizations.
Perfect. Now, we heard a lot of things about Process Expert and the SPI and Process Lens. what customers actually ask, is it already out there in the market? Are customers using it? Can you tell us some feedback from customers?
Yeah, so it's been released for a few years, and the most obvious feedback, this is what Jens was getting at right now, is customers have said they've seen a shift from the operators. Once they implemented Process Expert, then the operators stopped doing things at the printer, because previously, if they had a printing defect, they would maybe increase the printing pressure or change the print speed, depending on their experience. But now with the full automation, the operators are not minding the printer or the SPI. They focus at the rest of the line, focusing on the placement process, the AOI, the oven. So that's one thing. The other thing, which is quite obvious as well, is through the optimization, then we can see an increase in the yield of the printing process, which is what the solution is supposed to do. But what we've seen as well with customers, we focused at the end of the line, and we could see the impact of the implementation of Process Expert because the printing process is more stable. So all the deposits look similar. And for example, at the AOI after the oven, there was a very strong reduction of the number of false fails. Measuring solder joints after the oven is not easy because they reflect the light if you look at them with a camera. But using Process Expert, the solder joints all looked similar. So then the AOI process is working better as well. So even though we optimize on the first process in the line, it has a benefit for the rest of the processes.
And I guess we have less operators breaking their hands, hitting constantly, except.
Yeah, and Jérôme mentioned something important, because if you're not using that one, you really rely on the training, on the experience of the operator, right? And when I've been on customer side, many times you see it's the training level, the knowledge level is very, very much dependent. Yeah,
it's very individual.
Usually, the most of the problems happens during the night shift, right? All of a sudden, nothing is working there anymore because you have different people working in front of it. And this is exactly the influence factors, which is also part of the diagram, which are very difficult to control. So if you can automate that, I think you take away a lot of these problems, right? I mean, you can say that from the process point of view as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure.
Christoph, talking about Process Expert, so if a customer wants to check out our Process Expert, he could come to you, to our Center of Competence. But there's much, much more to the Center of Competence as an important ingredient to the perfect printing process. So what is it? The machines learn a lot. Do your experts also learn a lot?
Yeah, we also learn a lot. And to be honest, when we started with Process Expert, we were a little bit concerned about will our knowledge be replaced by Process Expert? So these concerns we had. And meanwhile, I do see this as a big chance for us, because when we had to optimize a printing process in the past, it was a very time-consuming and material-consuming act. So you had to get access to the line, you had to get all the materials you need, you had to run all the trials, to collect all the SPI data, to do maybe also a lot of microscopy work, put everything together and get the right conclusions out of it. So all this can be done now with Process Expert. And we have much more time to focus on new challenges that we are facing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think we will always have to optimize our production processes, and this will continue, but we will not be able to survive by only optimizing existing processes. So we got to accept and find answers to new challenges, and I have more time for that right now instead of repeating the same process all the time.
So what makes your team special for the customer?
I think we have a very, very wide scope of expertise that allows us to have the right focus and identify the weaknesses in an overall process. From that point of view, I think we can do really a lot in our center of competence.
And I think it's also, important as well, because the print process is not so easy to just transfer from a customer into the COC, so that you have the experience, but also it's possible for process engineers to go on site, because particular print process is not a copy paste, put it in a box and send it somewhere else. You can do that more easily with the placement, but with the printing,
that's right.
Is a little bit so.
That's right. That's also my experience with pick and place application. It's much more easy. Not always, but in general, you can say that. Yeah, it's true.
One important question to you. So, Center of Competence, of course, it's full with ASM equipment. So, can only a customer with ASM equipment can come to you to get improvement?
Of course not. Of course not. Because we have this wide scope of experience, I think we might be able to identify weaknesses maybe a little bit faster than somebody else could. Of course, we have a wide range of products, and it's our natural interest to bring our products on the market. But of course, this will not work if there is no benefit for the customer. So we can take the challenge, we can find and provide a solution, and with Process Expert you will be able quite soon to see a positive or a negative impact. So I think that's a perfect situation.
Jens, we heard about this improvement process and expertise and recommendations. Now we have this certified printing excellence.
Yes.
What is this and how does the customer benefit from this?
Yeah, this certified excellence is exactly the point that we just take all our know-how together. Yeah, as we mentioned, we are having on the machine side, we have on the process support products everything, and we have process engineers which really have a lot of experience, many years of experience. And what we do here is actually that with this certification, we are actually running an audit on the customer side. So we are just checking, focused on one product, and of course the line here. So we are just checking what is the current status. Yeah, that is actually what we can see there with all our know-how, but we also can identify where we see potentials to optimize. And that is exactly the gap in between what is there and what we see here. This is what we are offering as a certification. So the customer can decide after the audit if he wants to go the next step, and we just work on it and we are optimizing, and we are just then prove what we have committed to before. This is of course the big benefit here, because we have all from the stencils, from the tooling, from the printer, we have all this know-how. Yeah, so and we can prove it, and if the customer and if we really achieve what we promised, then the customer has a big benefit. And if we not achieve, the customer has also a benefit, because we helped him to optimize with all the material, with a lot of materials. So it's in both ways a win-win situation for the customer. Yeah.
I guess also a question to Laszlo. So this more customer-centric approach, where it starts already when you visit a customer and have a stencil project. Is it so, Laszlo? So how is your selling process and in cooperation with the other departments?
So it is going only with hand by hand. So we need to cooperate, because otherwise your left hand doing something what the right hand don't know. So there are a lot of projects when we need to go and we need to visit the customer together. So to optimize the stencil, you need to basically know the engine, your engine. And this is, I like to work for PSP products, because we can cooperate with many different departments, from printer to SPI, and this is coming hand by hand.
One important question for nowadays: what about Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and printing? How is the status there with our products?
So I can start with this. If you think about what we've been discussing now about Process Expert, it's actually analyzing a lot of measurement data from the SPI. And we're talking about millions of measurement data. So this is, you already have a large database, and the concept is that it's going to evolve into an AI, artificial intelligence, to take full ownership of the processes, but not only in printing, but also to include the other SMT processes in the line.
Yeah, but also on the equipment side, I mean, when we're just looking into a smart factory, I think integration and communication is the key. Either on a horizontal way, machine to machine, like the IPC Hermes interface as an example, which is really transferring information with the board, but also to the top, where we're just really interacting with systems. Over interfaces, yeah, and we can do that very flexible. As a good example is verification traceability. That is the key nowadays. I mean, in automotive, it's a key since long time, but it's also coming more and more into other areas of the industry. We need to know, okay, is that the right stencil? Is that the right squeegee? Is that the right tooling? Is the paste in the right condition? Because that's also important. I mean, today you want to get a perfect print result. If the paste is coming out of the fridge and is at 6 degrees or 7 degrees, it will not work, no way. So you will completely screw up your process. So important is to track this, that you say, okay, is that the right paste? That's the first thing. Yeah, that's the easy verification point. But if we're looking more into the details, then by using the MES system, so when was the paste taken out of the fridge? Does it have more, maybe 3 to 4 hours to really warm up in the right conditions? That all information are usually somewhere carried in an overall system. And we have interfaces here, very clever and open interfaces to communicate with the system. So even the verification on the printer, you can say particular for the paste. I'm not using a local reference, which is saved on the printer. I'm asking my MES system. So when I'm gonna scan the barcode of the material, then the MES can decide, is that paste possible, or should this paste be used? Or no, it is not. It's the wrong one, or it was not out of the fridge long enough. All this information, I think this is key. And I think this is important for the smart factory. If we talk about that one, particular with smaller batch sizes, what you mentioned, particularly in Europe, we don't have this real volume production anymore. That is the lot size is getting smaller and smaller, so you have a lot of changes every day and this need to go fast, smooth, and it need to be controlled. And I think that is exactly also the interfaces you need for this communication of all this information. And I think, as Jerome mentioned, just for the Process Expert, we're just controlling millions of data. And the same is when we just took on the placement equipment. It's also million of information you get there. But the same is with the printing. You want to know, okay, was it printed with the right pressure, with the right speed, and all the information that's essential now. It's just a must-have. Yeah.
So yeah, data, Internet of Things.
Put it in one word or in one line. So for process control, we need transparency, and this is what the machines need to be able to. We need to provide transparency, so you get to know what is going on in each part of the line to control your processes. I think in the longer run there will be not too many options for that.
And we provide already a lot of data beginning with the Stencil. So a question to all of you, and let's start with you, Christoph, because you have the most customer visits daily. So what are trends our customers need to be aware of, beside of Internet of Things, when it comes to stencil printing?
So I would like to start with a general thing that we notice. Continuously we see a higher number of products, a much bigger product variety in our companies, in our manufacturing companies, and with a higher complexity and a smaller lot sizes. And I think this brings you to the point where an optimization with smaller lot sizes is getting very, very difficult if you do it the conventional way. So from that point of view, I think the ASM Process Expert is a very, very good tool to cope with this difficulty.
Yeah, I agree with Christoph. And on top of this, you have to think about the higher density of components, and then the cost as well of the boards, of the components themselves. So you do not want to create any defects, because then it will increase the number of scraps. So you want to get your processes in control from the start.
Yeah, what we see as well is that because we are just at the edge of the technology in the moment, when we're looking into smartphone business as an example, which is mainly driven out of Asia, China, the boards are so complex that even there, just the simple PCB board, if we call it simple, it's not simple anymore, but it's already at the limit. So what they do now is they are not usually not printing just a multi-up board in once anymore. So they're testing it, and then they separate, and only the good ones will be taken in the line. And that offers new challenges like handling boards in carriers, because the good ones will be placed in the carrier, and fixing a board in a carrier is a different scenario. Yeah, they can float in the pocket, so we need to use vacuum, but we need to make sure that the vacuum is not influencing the process. That we basically suck down the stencil through the wire holes. So we have developed solutions like the ultra high flow vacuum in order to cope with these challenges. Yeah, and you see also more module production, right? So something we see also in Europe getting more. Yeah, where with the new technologies like 5Gs, we see also we coming more into module business, which is originally driven out of Asia as well, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Laszlo, from your experience visiting your customers in the Central Eastern region?
I completely agree with the gentleman. So I think miniaturization is carry on. Also, the products is getting more complex. So we are talking in automotive industry. We are talking about electrification of the cars, also autonomous driving. So all of these new things are going to make the products more complex. Also, the form factor is not changing. It needs to be smaller and smaller. But somehow parallel with the small components, still large components are present on the PCB. So what we are seeing here also is an increase of step stencil, for example. But as the products are getting more and more complex, the product is going to be more and more expensive. So from process support product point of view, we also do everything what we can do to minimize the cost of the production. Such option is the smart stencil, for example, which is counting the print cycle. So we are kind of estimating the stencil lifetime, and the customer can order the new stencil in time, or they can focus more for the print defects. Or if you have an SPI or a process expert system, then you can reduce the number of defects towards the end of the stencil lifetime until the new stencil is arriving. So absolutely agree that this is going forward, and this is carry on.
Perfect. So I guess this discussion should really show our customers that we are really the logical partner when it comes to improving the printing process. So I recommend to you to check out the audit for the printing excellence. This brings us to the end of the show. You will find additional information, of course, on our website and on YouTube. So let me thank my colleagues. Thanks, Jens, for joining us.
Thank you, Laszlo.
Expertise. Thanks, Sharon, for the introduction
You're welcome.
Process Expert. Thank you, Christoph, also for your experience.
Always welcome. Was a pleasure.
And thank you, Laszlo, for joining us from Hungary.
Thank you very much, Laszlo. You invited me.
It was great to have you all here. And most of all, it was great that you have joined us. We will see us in the next roundtable discussion. Until then, thank you and goodbye.